My name is Rob Swainston. Hello, and welcome to Prince of Darkness 2.0. You wanted me to introduce myself as a master printer, but I think I'm the disaster printer of Prince of Darkness. No, I don't know. I do think we need disaster printers. Like, come on. So we haven't actually. We're working on this project together. You should introduce yourself.
I'm Floral Arts. We are working on this collaborative project here.
And this project does follow some of it's like CNC, some of it's like done by hand, some of it's photo based, some of it's computer based, and it's a wood block. So it sort of it overlays with a lot of the kind of stuff that we're interested in here, and we're collaborating on this project together. It's not like master printer artist stuff here. It's like artist. But we haven't seen this color yet. This is a brand new color. This is the fifth, sixth layer, something like that, on this block that we have. And it's like we don't really know what we're gonna get. Like here we have where we're at right now, and we just mixed up that yellow, which sort of fits in the regular sort of chromatic process yellow palette, except it's a little lighter. I really like yellow over top of purple because you get really nice ochre. We're using offsettings for this wood block. They got a really high pigment load, so we got to jam them with a lot of transparency. I wonder if I should. I don't think that's going to make a difference, is it? When I first moved to Brooklyn, I was coming out of undergrad, and I was moving to New York, and I was looking for a community and a space and people that were creative and that were on the periphery. I first moved out to East Williamsburg, and then I got thrown out, of course. And then I found a loft, and I was like, I'm not going to get thrown out again. So I took a 10-year lease on a really raw space, and I built it out. At the time, it was a place that was a little more on the periphery. You could have the leisure to have a large enough space to try stuff. You could get a large enough loft space, and after you had this loft space, then you could figure out how to sort of make something out of it. Having a space gave me an opportunity to actually try a couple different sort of things that I'll do with it and try to have it generate something. And one that an art studio was clearly one, but having a print shop where people would come and collaborate and work on projects was a model that stuck, because it's both my studio and other artists will come in and work with me. Maybe I get the pressure up a little bit more. I think it's okay. Are we upside down? Yeah, look at that nice ochre. It's not quite right. Oh no.
It's overall cyan.
Is this one of the light magenta goes purple? I think we're gonna have to put white in there. You're totally right. If you can deal with equipment and moving stuff around in this town, people will give you stuff if you're willing to show up. People will give you stuff if you're willing to show up. So someone calls me up and is like, we got to move this shop in 2 days because they're going to throw it away in Chinatown. I went down and rescued a litho shop that was going out. 5-floor walk-up, 2 presses, a bunch of stones, a conversion press. It was an artist who had just died, unfortunately, and their estate just wanted to make sure the equipment was going to be used. I had a loft in Williamsburg at the time, and I had a place to put it, and I called a bunch of friends, and we got some trucks, and we went down there, and we spent some time going through the estate and separating out all of his prints that he wanted to save. We actually did posthumous edition for their estate. His name was Ronald Glassman, so I named my first press after Ronald Glassman. But that press now lives a shoestring press because I gave it, long-term loan to my friend Lane, who started a shoestring press. And the second press that I actually gave to Gutenberg Arts, which is in Gutenberg, Jersey, right across there. So those 2 presses are still being used. In this shop, the only thing that's left from the first haul, besides a few lithostones over there, is this stone lift that you see how it says Lopez on it, and after Nicola Lopez, who showed up with a truck and was like, okay, let's do it. So, little 1-year-old. It used to be all mechanized and everything, but I cut off all the electronics. Let's do another one and then throw red over it. Okay. Let's try red on one there. So we were talking about this stuff, and I have like a, CNC, and I do stuff that's like, old and new mixed too. So we decided we were going to come up with, we were just going to do a project together. So, I went over to his studio. You just happened to have his image, and you were like, oh, Rob has been working with clouds, so maybe he'll like to do his clouds. And I was like, okay. So then we separated it into all these different colors. We made an index color separation, knowing that these two colors would make a super ochre. I forced that, knowing that light cyan, and magenta are always your friends, but wanting to throw it off with a little bit of green and a little bit of red. So we made an index color separation, and then made a stipple gen. I had a partner, Doug Bennett, who was like a master printer at Columbia where I was working as a student, and who also worked at the Lower East Side Print Shop and had done stuff with Two Palms and UALE. And I was like, let's start a shop. Instead of like having a lot of overhead and trying to do like a real sophisticated business model, I was like, I got the studio, let's just set it up and not feel like, obliged to take on contracts that we don't want, and let's just see where it goes. So we set that up in 2006, 2005. It ended up just becoming me around 2008, 2009, like that. I moved it here and grew. I grew out of the space in Williamsburg about 4 years ago, and I moved it over here and gave me an opportunity to expand it a little bit. So yeah. Did I answer that question? Exactly. But I also say like some of the artists that I worked with actually have ended up being mentors in a way. As in my own practice, and like now that I teach a decent amount of printmaking, like artists like Charlene Von Heil, and Dana Schutz and Charlene, probably most of all, watching the artists that I work with, like really what they focus on as artists and really what they think is important. Like, it's got me to slow down and get the colors just right and really pay attention at the right moments, and to at other moments just speed through it just to sort of get to the end and not be too meticulous about something. So watching the way certain artists that I worked with worked, and having them in the shop to do collaborative stuff is probably usually mentor is another master printer, but I think I've actually mentored with some artists. I mean, printmakers will disagree about each other about how technical we need to be and how precise we need to be to the zeitgeist of the exact edition. I'm not when I'm editioning something, of course I'll make it an edition, but I'm not going to go into a project with the idea that I'm looking to reproduce exactly the thing that I'm starting. I'm not going to limit the inputs because I know that they're not exactly reproducible outputs. A lot of what Prince of Darkness does kind of follows my own practice in a way. Is I think it's often master printers and people who run shops will leave making their own work, or set their own work aside and let other artists step up and take over their creative energy. It's kind of like the master printer disease that I've sort of seen for a long time. So I've been really conscious to try to not let that happen. The thing that drives a shop here is often my own sort of investigations about the possibilities of crafting a newer way of doing things. We have all these new technologies of layering, Photoshop. We have all these new tools, CNC, laser cut. We have all these photo processes, silkscreen processes that we can sort of overlay really easily onto sort of older processes for new results. So I think if I have a specialty, it's that hybrid, a new taking the consequences of new media and sort of reimagining what old media can do with these new consequences, and not making a division between digital printing and photography and printmaking, not trying to sort of be this is the way that you do an etching. If there's a way around it, and it's the artist can understand it more, and it's more in the artist's vocabulary and how they work as a painter or as a sculptor, why not try it? It's ridiculous. There's a traditional way to do lithography, but litho is the photocopier of the 19th century. So why not update it and do something else? It makes no sense to me. But 10, 20 years ago, when I started to work like this, there was a lot of resistance, a decent amount of resistance in the print community to people like was like a nut job for saying that, but if you go around now and talk to people, that's not the case anymore. The print world, I think, is a lot more open to experimenting and to try new things.